Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. I need to grow. The only way that I know to grow is to be challenged. So come challenge me. For now, I'll read a little bit. Genesis 8:15. And angels made a promise unto Noah, the giver of rest, of their intent, to depart and to divide and share out, according to a plan from the ark of permanent housing, mature males and females, young males and young females, family building young males and childbearing females to wed, to be again contracting in anguish and suffer together. You'll normally read this as everything comes out of the ark. I hold this as talking about an entirely different planet. And also intending to bring out with them of every living thing with them, of all flesh, of all fowl, all herd animals, and of everything that creeps upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth and be fruitful and multiply on that next earth. The word next right there is not in the original text, but I think is necessary. I inserted that, not trying to deny it. Go, said Noah, send out young family building sons and daughters to bear children to wed. One woman for each man to be wedded, and together will be contracting in anguish. Yep, life here is pretty tough. And every beast, every creeping thing, every fowl, whatsoever creeps upon the earth, unaltered, went forth out of the ark. So we're back to Genesis again. You know, the 6 days of creation. Build again. I did not put the word again there. It's just there. Said Noah, the giver of rest, obtain children on the offering altar of Jehovah. If you look up the definition of offering altar, one of them, one style of them for one purpose, has to be made of earth, that is, the whole earth. Take wives, all you clean mute beasts and fowl, and increase the burnt offerings that ascend from the sacrificial altar. Sacrificial altar, again, being the earth. And yes, not all animals are collected back off the earth, although it's attempted to collect all humans off the earth. That's why there are burnt offerings on the altar where there's heat underneath and flesh burning on the surface, because they're going to burn the planet up. And even your average Christian will agree with me that it's definitely in the text that it's going to burn the planet up, and that's how the planet ends. A lot of them think it's nuclear war. That's why they say that. And the smell that Jehovah smelled quickly confirmed and established that the soothing smell commanded by Jehovah, that was commanded and promised for wisdom of mind and heart, was done. That is, we'll have wiser minds and hearts in heaven. And he thought of increasing no more, but cursed the red-dyed earth. Yep, earth's really red, especially when it's molten lava. Again, witness because Adam's sake, surely understanding of heart of mankind. There should be an of right there. Understanding of heart in works really well. Mankind's understanding of heart. Surely evil like the lion's whelp, shaking its head and roaring. Neither again slaughter with good witness. Everything quickened because of my dealings. While this earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, it will not have Sabbath rest. All those things don't end, and there is no Sabbath until those things do end. Next chapter. Life after ascension. So a little bit of describing what goes on in the heavenlies. Not too much of it. Peace and respect, Cryptomeria, also Krishna. I don't know why I tripped over it at that time. Said it correctly 1,000 times before. Angels blessed Noah, the giver of rest's family, building sons, and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the firmament. This firmament, the firmament above and or heaven. That is, to be crude about it, angels give birth. Back at you, Krishna. Umbrella. How are umbrellas related to wardrobe malfunctions? I don't get that one. And the fear of you and the dread of you will be upon every beast of the firmament, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that move in the firmament of heaven, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Under your control they are they delivered. Of course that's not true here. Christians will say, oh yeah, there's animals have a natural fear of us here. Yeah? Which ones? The snakes that bite us, the bugs that bite us, the birds that bite us, the bears that bite us, the barracuda that bite us, the beluga that bite us. What? Those are bee animals that I can think of off the cuff. And every moving thing that is quickened shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. Vegetarian. Even in the King James horrible translation, 9:3 says you can eat all the stuff. But apparently in heaven you have a choice of not being vegetarian. Truly the least of these tidings refreshed the creature against bloodthirsty devourings. That's right. We will no longer be bloodthirsty in heaven. That kind of makes sense. If you were premium enlightened, you wouldn't be a bloodthirsty, warmongering, blah, blah, blah. Truly, confirmation of prophecy has cut down the bloodthirsty and refreshed the mind that inquired of consecration and quickened the creature Adam. And since it's, and since it's the creature Adam, I really should make the group Adama. That emotional animal, and consecrated mankind, and consecrated the existent kindred, and quickened all of the creature mankind that did ascend. So quickened or perfected, right there, a condition of the promise of heaven. You know, the whole, and this is part of where I get the idea, being refreshed of the mind, consecrated, quickened. This is kind of where I get the idea that we're going to one of the parts that we're going to be much smarter in heaven, and not closed-minded, and not prejudiced, and you know, all that junk we do right now. Pour out a man's blood, and a man will pour out your blood, because you have inherited that vain angels wrought the first Adam. Vain angels. Of course, that doesn't show up in the King James, the word vain right there, but it is there. These angels of vanity, meaning demons. This is part of one of the reasons that I say we have inherited some of that genetic material, which makes us inclined toward, I don't know, being able to shut off our empathy, for instance. We're apparently able to shut off empathy, sad as that is. You will increase and multiply exceedingly, bringing forth abundantly in the firmament storehouse of heaven. An angel spoke, speaking of this right here, this is a reiteration of the same of the curse of Eve, that her birthing will hurt, and she's going to have her birthing and hurt greatly multiplied. It just doesn't mean it's going to hurt more. It means that you have more of them and they hurt. Why Christians read it out of context, I think it's an evident context. I do know. An angel spoke that which was required by Noah, the giver of rest, to the sons of rest, who were contracted out of suffering and required of the sons of rest. I, those who are mine, will I see, who were confirmed and established by the covenant against the contract of anguish, in a new covenant, and with your yielded carnal fruit, you and your children who get it, and all taken from the contraction and anguish, which is the tribulation, or life on this earth, every quick and mute beast, every fowl, every herd animal, every wild animal of the earth with you, with all that came into the ark, and with every beast from the firmament below. And even in the King James, people try to justify the volume of the ark and how it could hold all the animals. Here it reiterates that it says all critters, not just the ones that breathe through nostrils. I have completed my prior covenant with you, that you're stuck on the earth and it's going to suck. Neither will any fat-fleshed messengers cut off any more the large group of beings deluge, nor will there be again any large group of beings to destroy this earth. Once it's done, it's done. And spoke the angel, saying, this arising miracle from the separating covenant with all, I appoint between myself and between you and between them. By the way, in the King James, they just cut that out right there, because they couldn't make sense of it in their reading frame. Every quickened alive creature, that they will dwell in heaven for perpetual generations. Yes, some dogs go to heaven and live forever. Not all of them. Sorry if your dog doesn't make it. Peace and respect, Halcyon Kaiju, and also Da Freak. I will deliver a snaring bow and an enchanted cloud to better your consent, and as a sign of the separating covenant, separating from the earth covenant, between me and you being complete, and the new covenant in the firmament of heaven. So this is the part that comes out rainbow in some translations, but what it literally says is a bow in the cloud, an enchanted bow in the cloud. So a cloud that's shaped like a bow, not a rainbow. Rainbows are not made of clouds. They're made of water vapor. They do not look like clouds. It will soon be better when the enchanted cloud brought by the Most High over the earth is perceived by you. By you who? You who? By you, the intended reader. So I believe it's a sign to Christ. Like the snare of the archer, perceived as a sign of the times in a cloud. I didn't add anything here. It's just the King James butchers it. It will be a sign of the times, which they leave this idea right here out. They just say sign in the clouds. Well, no. And when it talks about times, it always talks about the same times, and those same times are the important times, not the mundane times, the things we go through, but the truly interesting times, end times. And you will remember the separating covenant with all of you, between me and between you and your bride. See? You and the bride. And between absolutely everything quickened alive of flesh and perfected. And fat-fleshed messengers will not again be a deluge of cleansing as a large group of beings, and will not be recorded again or come to pass again, or again bring forth a deluge of destroyers of absolutely every messenger. So no messenger will ever do that again on that planet. Well, rainbows are kind of made of clouds, George. Peace and respect, Harple Blues. Water vapor, not clouds. It's not condensed enough to call it a cloud. My desire is you are snared by the bow in the prophetic cloud, and behold and remember the perpetual hidden covenant between angels and between all of you, evidenced by absolutely every quickened alive, breathed upon and refreshed, by absolutely every messenger within the wilderness firmament of heaven. So this is the idea that heavens are a testimony that we'll be okay. Detailing the nature of mankind in the great day of the Lord. It will be better for the building block sons of the giver of rest to proceed into heaven, rather than die with the earth? Yeah, I think so. Of Shem, those of appointed name. of Ham, those who grew warm, and of Japheth, those who are open to persuasion, because Ham, those who grew warm, is the chief of Canaan, and the subjected by traffickers. What kind of traffickers? It's going to go into great depth what it means by traffickers, but mostly it means exactly what you think it means. Those who buy and sell anything, literally anything. These are the three types of building block sons of the giver of rest, and of these was the whole earth populated. So it covers the whole population. It pained and grieved the giver of rest to begin the gathering of grapes. This is another pat term from within the Bible, meaning end times, or the great day of the Lord properly. Beginning the gathering of grapes subjected them to desperate wickedness. You ain't going to like it. And Enos is the certain husbandman of the blood-dyed red earth because of planting that vineyard. Okay, so Enos is the husbandman, or it's like a caregiver, gardener. So it's his garden, essentially. So it's calling Enos the giver of rest. And drank of the apportioned effervescent wine, and was abundantly merry and drunk on it, and became obvious, ending the mystery of the midst of their clear and shining temporary tabernacle, the kind whom their father is the stream of water irrigating and bringing forth. So you've got the genetic supply, then you got the one who conducts end time underneath him, and he is that vineyard keeper and or their father. So there you have all that. Oh, we have a commander. Oh, who just woke up. Peace and respect, Commander.
Peace and respect. I was actually looking at this in the Hebrew. I came in without any of the justifications of how or what was going on. I'm assuming this is Exodus? Not Exodus. This is Genesis.
Yes, it's Genesis. Yes, that's correct. Yes, Beck and I grew up together. That kind of brother and sister, or brothers. That kind of siblings. Peace and respect, Jody and William Freeman. So you're looking at the Hebrew.
And keep in mind, I can only understand about 20% of it.
Oh, I thought you might have been fluent.
No. As you actually start caring about it more, read along with them going, blah, 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 but you're reading in the English, you can start picking up stuff. But I'm not fluent.
I'm actually avoiding learning any languages just in case I'm ever used for tongues. I don't want to be able to claim I knew a language besides English. Is that a weird motivation? I don't know.
Well, when people talk about tongues, they're just like blabbing out. Most of the time, they're blabbing out of their backside.
That's what I find to be true, but that's not what's described as what tongues is. By the way that I read it, from what I understand, it means being enabled to testify to someone in a language that you don't speak by being able to temporarily speak their language.
Well, that's what I thought it was. Not the hasdu, not the bambata.
I actually found recording. He's a famous televangelist. Was speaking in tongues, i.e., lying, and he actually let go with yabba dabba doo, because angels sometimes say that.
I'm assuming that was Kenneth Copeland or someone like that.
A younger guy. He's younger than Kenneth Copeland. I can't recall his name, but they're all just liars to me, and I can't get interested enough to remember their names.
I'm doing a thing where I'm going to make a debunking of these three: Kenneth Copeland, Robin Bollocks, and Pinky. And
How do
I got them in straitjackets.
how do I make you? How do I make you? There. Okay. Can see you better
I
now.
got them in straitjackets, and I can play their audio and make their mouths move. And when they start speaking in tongues, I'm going to say, "Oh, I can speak in tongues too." And then I'm going to start speaking in Hebrew and have them say, "Okay, repeat after me. All Vino Malkenu Shema Kolenu." I forget, but I'm going to say, "We have sinned against you. Have mercy on us," and ask them to pray the sinner's prayer, and just mocking them. You've got Robin Bollocks going on about how God is going to be merciful to Putin and how Putin is absolutely innocent. That's actual audio, but I made models.
Wow.
I'm actually gonna try to, you know, do something right, and I'm going to be respectful of Christianity, even though, like, I don't
Why?
believe in it. You're not going to be able to tell that I'm being respectful to respectful to people's religion, not religion, but belief. In other words,
I I want to be respectful of people, but if I'm saying something stupid, I wish you'd tell me. And if
well,
I
that's
find
what
you
I'm
something
going.
stupid, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to say, "Hey, look, that's stupid, and here's why."
Well, that's what I'm. In other words, I know what things should be technically, and just like make fun of the idiocy, the stupidity, the evil, the blasphemy, and whatnot.
I think anything that's not true that is presented as true is evil. I really do, because I think it hurts
Well,
us literally.
yes,
You
it
know,
does. You need
in
to
tangible ways.
actually tell the truth. Most of the time, telling the truth is the best thing, even if it hurts. Outside of like war, or someone says, "Where's the person they want to kill?" Then you lie and tell them, "No, they're over. They're over in the corner there when they're under the floorboards."
What if I choose to say something like, "You're going to do what you want to do, despite anything I might say"?
Yeah, that's honest, and you're not giving anybody up.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'd say something like that in that kind of situation. I pray I never see that situation, but it's not
Oh, I
impossible.
hope none of us do.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I actually have that preview up there, and Pinky actually, like, she misused the Federation symbol, right? So here's
Oh,
one of
that's
the
their actual faces. I don't
see
know
how
those
she has
characters.
her. They're basically, if they were Batman, if they were in the DC universe, they'd all be Batman villains. See how she's co-opted the Star Trek symbol. So I have John Luke Picard saying, "What you're doing is unethical, it's immoral, and I will stop you." So I'm just going to have a good mocking of these idiots. And they are.
Who are they again? One's
Um,
Copeland.
One is Copeland, the other is Cat Kerr, and the other is Robin Bollocks. And his name is Bollock, but I have decided to call him Bollocks. Um, they're all self proclaimed prophets who keep
Really?
proclaiming things that never come to pass, and they should all have been stoned. I'm not saying they haven't been stoned, but that's a good kind of stoning versus the kind of stoning that they need. Um, but they're part of what's known as the New Apostolic Reformation, whereby which you have apostles who come. and they take what was sound and whatever and say, that's liberal legalism. Then you have the prophets who fill in whatever they got rid of. And it's both comical and frightening because you have Robin Bullock's prophesying in May of, or was it March or May of 2021, that things were just going to go swimmingly for Putin. And it's that kind of toxic.
Oh, wow.
Every conspiracy theory that they float has its roots in the protocols of the elders of Zion. So, and they
I don't even know
basically
what that
have this.
is.
Um,
What's Elders
it's
of Zion mean?
it's basically bullshit that the czar made up against Jewish people, and
Which
it's the
czar?
roots of um the last one. I'm forgetting his
Of what
name.
place?
Russia.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the Jews are all communists or the godless Nietzsche lovers, or but and they're all. Then you get blood libel, which is from the parallel of that is the adrenochrome crap from the QAnons. So most of the Q conspiracy theories are basically have their parallels in the bullshit that the Tsar heaved against the Jewish people, the
Okay.
bullshit that the communists, the KGB, heaved against the Jewish people, the bullshit that Hitler heaved against the Jewish people, and basically most of the conspiracy theories about new world orders and secret societies, blah blah blah, they're all rooted in the protocols. But basically the protocols were, there was a French parody book, it was a comedy book about druids or whatnot trying to take over the world, and it was a comedy book, and they
Okay.
just, someone took 80% of the French book and just made up malign conspiracies about the Jewish people. So they promote conspiracy. Oh, and they have the great wealth transfer. You know, you're old enough to remember that when Barack Obama became president, all the conservatives were talking about how the Democrats want to do a transfer of wealth and how that was communism. So you have all these false prophets talking about how the Lord is going to give the country to Donald Trump, and then they're going to take all the money and all the stuff from the evil Democrats and give it to you, very good Christians.
Wow,
So
really?
so basically, these prophets are talking about a Christian version of the Bolshevik Revolution, and they're just slurping it up. So, and then you had Julie Green. She was the official campaign prophet of Doug Mastriano, a Nazi who tried to become governor of Pennsylvania. You know, when you and I were growing up, no one had official campaign prophets because that would
No.
have just been considered weird and blasphemous. And obviously, Doug Mastriano is not the governor of Pennsylvania. So, if what
It's still
the
too weird.
prophet says does not come to pass, we're
He's not a
supposed
prophet.
to, they're not a prophet, and we're supposed to take the prophet and club them with rocks. So, and it's just a pile of idiocy that's funny, but at the same time it's scary because you realize people's brains have detached from reality, and their conspiracies and their anger, and their anger and hatred has befuddled their brains. So
Wow, that was a lot. I listened to Kenneth Copeland because it got blasted all over the atheistic community, where he's like blowing the wind and fire of God at COVID 19. You ever seen that one?
yeah, COVID-19, I blow the wind of God. Well, how's that working for you, Kenny?
You know,
How's
it
that
didn't work
working?
out so well. But I saw it some time ago, and I don't remember how long ago it was. But I noticed a few things about his proclamation that he said was a prophecy from God. He said God told him that it wouldn't last as long as you think. Now, when I heard that, I thought, well, that was pretty darn vague. Who's you in this? Because if you means the people that he's supposed to say this to, which, if you were an omnipotent being, you'd have made that clear. Um, if it meant the people, then all the people could have like collectively sort of thought some kind of thing, maybe in general, like, oh, maybe it'll be gone in 10 years or 20 years. But you're not going to get any large mass of people to agree on anything really definitively. So I thought, well, then it must be to Kenneth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to
That's
be
what's
as long
implied.
as Kenneth thinks. Well, that would be okay, but then Kenneth never said how long he thought,
And then
which
I loved it.
he
And then
would know.
he proclaimed that may the Lord create a vaccine and give it to us, right? So he's blowing the wind of God and it's going away, but yet he's saying the Lord will bring a vaccine, right?
Yeah, well, that doesn't seem contradictory at all, does it? Because if God was going to destroy the virus himself with a strong, hot eastern wind or westward wind, whatever, why you need a vaccine? Um, but anyway,
That's how you know they're full of shit. And also
that's
because
exactly right.
he said when I was I heard that Abraham was very rich. I'm interested in very rich. And I think that's the only reason why he got involved in religion.
It may be true. He's worked very hard for a lot of years and has become rather wealthy. It's true. But then, if you tell people what what they want to hear, I think it's not that difficult to manipulate them. And if you're
There's a
allowed to
time
directly ask for money, oh, that don't help. That doesn't hurt anything either.
there's a time when they will not endorse sound doctrine, but instead gather around them teachers who I'm paraphrasing here will basically tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And
In the King James, it comes out tickling ears. If you wanted some keywords to look that up, anybody just look up tickle and ear in your search engine, and you'll see what Commander's talking about there. Let's Farm. Sorry I'm late. A wizard is never late, Let's Farm. You're precisely on time. And I'm glad you're here too. Sound doctrine. I've tried to say this to several people who get on these public forums and talk about their religion. And I wonder if you would agree with me to the following. Human beings are biased. I'm a human. I'm biased. If I read part of the text, I read it with my bias. If I read other parts of the text, I again read it with my bias. I read all of the text with my bias. If I read all of the text with my bias, then I could see all of the text agreeing with me because I'm using my bias. So there is no objective way for the singular individual to know if they're reading it correctly. Peace and respect, Faisal. What do you think of that?
well, I think, yeah. And that's why if you're going to read it, you need to just check yourself and ask, am I trying to make it say something that I don't want to? But I think as far as getting um, there's always going to be a bias as far as what weights you ascribe to um, different texts. And
Sure.
some people forget the love thy neighbor, and all they want to do is regulate other people's private parts. And that is like, and they don't even get the context. We've said this before, right? That, in the ancient world, there were cults that encouraged the worship of gods with cult prostitutes, male and female, gay and straight relationships. And when Paul said, and those who encourage it, well, they were talking about in that case of the cult prostitutes and the worshiping of other gods and whatnot. And that whole context is lost because Constantine cleaned those cults out. And what Constantine didn't clean out, Muhammad cleaned out. And now people use it to justify their hatred of people who have inclinations that they just don't. And judge not lest ye be judged. So
Yeah.
just because you are not, you know, you do not have such inclinations, you know, don't
I,
pick on someone.
and speaking of all of those things, peace and respect, secular pagan mom. Speaking of all of those things that are singled out from within the text, both Old and New Testament, I really do think that it's not talking about the act itself, but that it's talking about being fringe in a certain situation where there's plenty of evidence as to why you shouldn't be fringe. And I think actually that's all that it is speaking to. Like for instance, if 99.999% of human eyes picked up a clear sky as being some light color blue, and someone else is seeing it as some shade of red, and they insist against that huge majority that they must be correct, and they won't accept that it's only their view, then they need to change their word red to blue. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think part of it is just we are social creatures and we form societies and groups for benefit,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a need to conform. Now, I've talked with people, I won't mention their names, but they said that they did not choose to have such inclinations,
Most people don't.
etc. And did you choose to be straight? No.
Good
If
question.
you did, then you're at least bi. And deal with it and stop hating people.
That's pretty funny. If you chose to be straight, you're actually bi. Just try to, that's great. That's wise, actually.
So, but also too, granny and grandma and mom and dad want grandkids and great grandkids, so they put pressure on the kids to do what they want to do rather than what the kids want to do, blah blah blah. But the original context for those things being a no was, oh my goodness, pagan cults worshiping foreign gods, and that was in the well before Christianity ever came around. And well, here's some news for you. There was a preacher that I knew. He said this: there's been plenty. He was also a Levite, but he became a Christian preacher. Um, he said, for thousands of years, my family has had to deal with people around us who do things that we don't like. And we have two choices. We can either make a nuisance of ourselves and get ourselves killed by the people around us, or we can just not participate in that which we do not want to do. So, which one is easier?
Depends. You want your family to survive?
And which one causes less friction? Blah, blah, blah. Just
Exactly.
everyone mind their own business for now.
You know, if I thought it was an actual problem, I would think it would be a salvific issue, and I don't think that it is. Because I don't know, the Old Testament does mention this, but I know the New Testament does. Okay, all of this outlier behaviors, used as an example of not accepting what is evident in your face. Some of you used to do these things.
Oh yeah, you used to be adulterers, liars, blah blah blah,
The whole list.
homos,
Yeah,
blah blah.
whatever the
The
list
whole
is.
list amongst you
Sure.
once were when you walked according to that. That's the text we're talking about.
Right,
In other
right.
words,
Go ahead.
the Apostle Paul didn't order people to be stoned to death.
Precisely my point. It's not damnable. It's just not. Now, it is being insisted that a person change their ultra minority view in the face of evidence that they get. Okay, that's being demanded the way I see it, but nothing else. It's not. It's not asking you to change who you are. Um, and that's another problem I have. And I don't know what majority traditional Jew would say to this. Um, if we are the creation of God, and there were something wrong with one of us, is that our fault?
Actually, I don't think so.
See, I
And
don't either. It doesn't make any sense.
the Jewish tradition actually has somewhat of a problem that, well, like take the story of Ruth.
Okay.
Some dude didn't want to marry Ruth because she was a Moabite.
Mm-hmm.
But what a Moabite? But the text says we're not supposed to accept those people, and they're not allowed even to the 10th generation.
Mm-hmm.
But she put herself under the wing of the Almighty, and Boaz married her. Now, here's the thing: if the right thing to do is basically tell her to F off, Mr. I don't know your name, why don't we know your name? And Mr. I don't want to accept this person who has a Jewish daddy but no Jewish mummy, um, because the text says I'm not supposed to. Well, the same text that says don't accept the Moabite, well, the lineage of David was part Moabite. So we're not supposed to accept him, yet he wound up running the joint, even though, he did have his problems, Bathsheba,
I'm not sure
but we're
those
all
were
human.
problems really, but again, I revert back. If there is something wrong with me, and I don't think there is, but if there is something wrong with me, how could it possibly be my fault? Did I take a hammer and hit myself in the head? Did I
No.
cut off one of my own limbs to make myself an amputee? People don't do stuff like that.
Why are you going to treat someone like absolute garbage for something that they have no control over?
Right. I never
Now,
chose to be straight.
if you decide to be a pathological liar, oh boy, you do have control over that. If
I'm not
you
certain.
decide to, um, I don't think most people start out um, telling the biggest lies in the world. What happens is they slowly become really really good at it, and it becomes a way of life. And pretty soon they can't tell the truth from, like Hitler was like, I like telling big lies and telling them often, because sooner or later people believe them.
Yeah. Dirty
That's a
varmint.
kind of
Could you have not written that? Just think about that for a minute.
um. So what you mean is, ultimately, I can not poop forever. I can just not poop
Do you have
forever,
total
dirty
free
vomit.
choice? Yeah, I guess so. I think that I mean it gets nuanced. See, there you go again. You're writing something more. I could have not written that if I chose to. You sure? Um, it's like saying be not of your nature. To say that you would choose something else is to say be something other than you. Well, good luck with that.
Oh,
I don't know how anybody would.
well, that's one of the reasons why, after giving Christianity a chance, I kind of dumped it to the curb, because what the group was basically saying is, you have to think like us. Well, where are you getting your thought process? Are you getting it from Ayn Rand or Friedrich Nietzsche, or are you getting it from the text that you want to shove into school but don't seem to have any um, concept of? Because I got a lot of my thought processes through the book you want to shove into schools, which the Constitution says there's a
You can't.
separation of church and state. But they wanted me to think like Ayn Rand, because it was a out to, like in 2000, white evangelicals were a 50-50 split, Democrat, Republican, and they could understand each other. I think that the liberal evangelicals, whichever are left, they can understand to a certain extent the conservative ones, but the conservative ones are so far gone in the I'm going to scream communism, socialism, Marxism at any act of empathy or compassion in society, that they can no longer understand the group that they say left. No, you left a long time ago. And in fact, if you had, like Ayn Rand and Friedrich Nietzsche, they basically said, yeah, our philosophies are antithetical to the Bible. And now I think it was Kenneth Copeland's wife, Gloria Copeland, in 2011. There's something that Charles Colson wrote, 2-minute warning about Rand. It's not in the video. He was the only co-founder of the religious right who was ever capable of criticizing his own side. And but the text that goes along with it basically says Gloria Copeland said that Ayn Rand was ahead of her time. And all she did when the
Hmm.
Democrats ran the churches was scream communist and socialist at all the Christians until she died on Social Security and Medicare, two things that she labeled communism and socialism. So now Mr. Conservative Evangelical person, you're treating everyone that you say is a godless, irredeemable atheist in the same way a rabid atheist treated Christians 50 years ago, and somehow people aren't listening to you.
Hmm.
There could be a connection here. And believe it or not, Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan out of San Francisco, said he gave people Rand with ceremony and ritual, and that's why there's a temple of Satan, because the Satanists found Rand's stuff juvenile and stupid. Um, but the fifth degree of membership in LaVey's Church of Satan is MAGA. That means
Which
female sorcerer in Latin.
okay.
I just thought that was interesting that the right wing satanic church, there is a more leftist wing as far as philosophy goes, but the right wing one, they back in the 60s, they created a degree of membership called MAGA, like
Oh,
Make America
MAGA.
Great. MAGA, yes. I just thought that was interesting.
I thought you said MADA.
No,
Miss.
MAGA. That means female sorcerer in Latin, and the male version of that is Mangus, I think.
Well, that would make sense. Um,
But they
you
wanted
really
to
think it's
change
not a
my very
coincidence?
nature.
It sounds too far. You sure it's not a coincidence, or you just suspect it's not a coincidence?
I suspect it's not
Okay.
a coincidence. But again, you have a view of the Bible and everything, which was you tried getting away from any bias. And even though I rejected Christianity ultimately, I have a more traditional Jewish and a
Mm,
my understanding of Christianity and would be more traditional. But
right.
so it's a connection to me. It might just be a coincidence ultimately. But
And that kind of brings me back to what is most reasonable to believe in the moment. And I think, and because I was speaking before to the subjective experience that we all have, and then some people assuming that their experience must be objective. And I don't think my experience is objective. I don't. But one of the things that tells me that the way I'm looking at a thing is most likely the right way to look at it is there certain indicators that I think should be employed. And I think if Christians tried to employ these same indicators, they couldn't maintain their Christianity. And it's simple things like consistency within the text. Like, how could I possibly say the Old Testament God had people killed, even those uninvolved in the situation, even those too young to have been involved in any kind of a decision whatsoever? And the Old Testament God had them killed, and Jesus agrees with the Old Testament. In fact, says that he is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. Um, and yet they will say that Jesus is uber Gentile, gentle, and that doesn't seem to coincide.
it really doesn't. And what I look at the writing of the Bible, there's it's not one, there are things in there that quite simply put, it was written at a time when you either genocide someone or they genocide you.
Well,
It
I know
was
that's
written
been
in the
true in the
Bronze
history of the
Age.
planet for real. I know that has happened several times.
And like where
But
it says, dash the little ones against the rocks when it's by the rivers of Babylon we wept.
mm-hmm.
That's a context of you sacked Jerusalem and you hauled us to this horrible place. You killed all of our hopes and our dreams for our lifetimes. Perhaps our children will have them, but we won't. Well, fuck you. That's a paraphrase. And fuck your, there's this idea of co-authorship of God and man, and that it does exist within both religions. But as far as reflecting reality, I don't think it's perfect. Maimonides basically said, if you believe everything in the Bible, you're a fucking idiot. I'm paraphrasing. But if you don't believe anything in there, you're equally an idiot because it's like a mix of history and myth and like Noah's Ark is the Epic of Gilgamesh and another hi Ox, how you doing? It's just the Epic of Gilgamesh in another telling.
Mm-hmm.
And the Epic of Gilgamesh and Noah's Ark, just think about it. In the Middle East, you might have a 1 in 1,000 year flood, right? Some
I don't
guys
know.
along the Tigris and the Euphrates, they do have, sometimes they have really bad floods, unseasonable weather. And some guy gets washed out to sea, right? And then he winds up further down in the Persian Gulf, surviving. And then the story, he's got a few goats or sheep or cow or chickens on his little raft, and then it gets embellished over time. Did you hear about this guy Noah? He, where something might have been based in fact, but then it gets embellished, or like
I
the
suppose if you
Exodus.
I suppose if you do enough shows, eventually something's going to happen where you have to cut a show short. Um,
Did
I
I
am
do
suddenly
anything wrong?
very no, not you. I'm just suddenly very ill, and I know that I have to go. And I apologize to everyone because we just got started. But peace and respect also, Odine. No, you didn't do anything wrong at all. You've been a source of knowledge and interesting and everything else. I just have to suddenly shut off this show and leave. I guess it was bound to happen sooner or later, yeah? That's how humans are. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you deeply. I truly do, especially Commander401 for coming in. And until next time, which might be in just a couple hours, we'll find out. We might come back on. I just don't even know right now. But for now, I have to shut down the show. So I apologize to you all. But thank you all for coming by. I deeply appreciate you all, and I look forward to the day that we're all great friends. And I have to go.
Peace out.
Peace.